Cookout. It's gonna be hot this summer. Get ready, America, because the cookout is taking over.
The cookout is taking over.
Ain't never had no heartbreak. But you know what? I made an album anyway. An invitation to the cookout. Come one, come all, it's a party.
There was only one name that I heard all summer.
The cookout.
The cookout, I got it.
The cookout.
Cookout?
To the cookout.
Yes, the Cookout. Twitter was going crazy about it, Reddit was having wars about it, everyone was in trouble about the creation of this groundbreaking alliance, and I also thought it was a fascinating occurrence, and especially why this alliance was created. But was it enough to give us a good season of Big Brother after 2 years of misery? Kind of. Listen, to me the story of modern Big Brother goes like, it starts good enough, we meet a bunch of interesting people, but at some point halfway through the season the same thing happens. One strong alpha group has a big alliance that's been running the game, and no one else sees them for the threat they are, and no one does anything about him until he gets to Final 2. Sure, they don't always win, but the journey of getting there is always a drag. BB19, BB20, BB21, BB22, they all had this happen. And with the exception of BB20, they were all goddamn awful. They were painful. But there were some key changes being made this season. Less recruits, less actors, more people of color, and a variety of ages throughout the board. More people that came here to play. Great, that sounds like a promising season. And you know what? Big Brother Canada 9 was actually pretty alright. There were a lot of great moments in that one. So maybe the USA season can follow through with a very entertaining season. You just couldn't help yourself, Big Brother, could you? Guys, I think Big Brother is broken. Because again, by the middle of the season there is that one big alliance and that one person who's obviously winning over everyone and nobody does anything about it. A lot of weeks where the obvious person is going home. I don't think any of the weeks had that target change, and no week had a house flip on a target, which goddammit, those are always my favorite moments. Plus, the final 6 was comprised of people from that one big alliance, and god, that sounds awful, right? But this season didn't nearly feel as painful as previous ones. So why is that? Well, join me in discussing Big Brother 23 with my reality stoplight and see what I got out of the season. Just a warning though, I'm reviewing the edited show here. Yes, I know it can be wildly different to a live feeds, and I read about the live feeds, but I don't follow them myself because that is just too much work. I'm not Taran. So my opinions here are based on the TV show, and I know that can get a little misleading. Anyways, it's time for... The stoplight is easy. Green is good, yellow is meh, and red is bad. I'll be reading a bunch of different main aspects from the season, such as the format, the twist, the alliances, the characters, the winner, and so on, and I'll assign a stoplight color to each of them, and at the end I'll give you my overall color and rating of the season. Now get ready to cook something up, we're going to start from scratch. Green light means go. The format. Theme. Every year Big Brother has a theme. Each year the house theme changes and it affects the twists and the challenges all around. It's honestly one of my favorite aspects of Big Brother. Just seeing the new decorations, the new rooms, the walls, the couches. As a graphic designer myself, I love a cohesive house. This year they went with a beach house theme to capitalize on everyone wanting to go on vacations after being locked in the house for so long, which I don't understand. Everything else about the season is casino themed, and they chose a beach house? Are casinos prominent in beach houses? I honestly have no idea because where I'm from, I have no beaches. While I am confused about the beach house theme, I did really like everything else about this season being about casinos, roulettes, dealing, playing cards, dice, taking risks, gambling. It didn't mess with people too much and it was a cool thing to have on the season. Furthermore, the season was divided into teams of 4 from the start: the Kings, the Queens, the Aces, and the Jokers, because casinos had playing cards. And winning head of household meant the entire team from that person's team was safe. I don't like teams in the beginning that much because it narrows the gameplay options, but it only protected one team and not half the house like in BB19, so I was okay with it. And the teams lasting 3 weeks was okay to me. The teams did result in some big alliances forming between them, and It didn't really result in conflict between these teams, but it was harmless. The season also promised the winners $7,500,000, $2,500,000 more than what they usually offer. And I figured that this was to incentivize the players to take more risks like in casinos and play more competitively, though as we'll see that didn't quite pan out. But that's not the fault of the season, is it? I think the theme of the season worked well, so that's great.
Tonight, 16 strangers will move in with only one goal
Casting.
in mind.
Yes, great casting. That's all I have to say about it. I don't know what they put in the drinks of previous Big Brother castings, but the BB19 and BB21 castings had a hugely mean-spirited vibe to it. Like, the people in the big alliances those seasons were just the worst. And there were a bunch of people who came there to gain followers on social media and not actually play. And listen, I don't like game bots on Survivor, but I can tolerate them much more in Big Brother, where it's a much longer game and keeping your emotions in check is much harder to do. Plus, the newly installed diversity campaign gave us a lot more variety in the contestants' backgrounds and personalities. There were the farmers, the models, and the surfer dudes, like Hellways, but now we had a lawyer, a phlebotomist, an account executive, a forensic scientist that does cosplays. People here were much more unique in life experience, and that gave us a less circle jerky season to say. People here were not as immature as in other seasons. I mean, there was still that big alliance, but they didn't feel like bullies like in seasons before, so it's much easier to digest. Even people who flop gameplay wise didn't feel so frustrating because they were all pretty likable, with an exception or two. But the season was not ugly and I appreciate it for that. Great casting.
Good luck, guys.
Go everyone. Good.
Keep the pace, keep the pace.
As with the theme, many of the challenges here had something to do about casinos and gambling games. Some of my favorite challenges here include the Unlucky 13 challenge, where they had to put playing cards onto another player's slots and eliminate them when the sum of all their cards reached 13, and players could take or add them from their own lane to avoid that happening. Or the dominoes one, where they had to create the shortest path to win, but the shortest path went to 3 domino pieces that punish you if you knock them down. And I don't know, I really like the mixture of fun, physical and strategy elements that Big Brother challenges have. They mix it up so well. There were the usual fan favorite recurring challenges, you know, trivia questions, OTE, BB Comics, the wall challenge, Steambot, but they didn't really have any notable moments. There were also some funny weird ones as well, like the weird Theory of Enhance and Promotion challenge. I love when they incorporate previous players into the competitions, and I love it even more when they Photoshop them in ridiculous fashion. But the most memorable one for me was the one where it was just a pure workout challenge, like see who can survive the most workout routines, and that gave us the funniest moment of the season by far.
The ticker has gone from going 1 at a time to twice its rate. I'm kind of scared.
God, Big Brother challenges are great. The production. The twists. Big Brother twists usually range from totally pointless to annoyingly intrusive. There have been some real stinkers in there. But I have to say that the wildcard competition and the high rollers twist were actually pretty great. And I think it intruded into the game just the right amount, where it kept things unpredictable and exciting, but it never felt completely coup d'etat unfair. The wildcard competitions were nice for the early stage, where there were a lot of people playing and players could win immunity for themselves and a couple of other players. Even if I think that, in top of the HOH team being already immune, it narrowed the game a little more. But it gave us Frenchie's HOH Reign of Disaster, which was one of the high points on the summer. I think they ended it in just the right spot as well. It didn't overstay its welcome and it kept things fresh. That was great. The high rollers twist and the BB box I especially loved. Listen, usually America is given the choice to give an overpowered power to any of the players, and they usually only give it to one player, which it feels wrong to me. But I do like it a lot more here. Say hi to the BB bags, which was currency given to the players in amounts of 50, 75 and 100 based on the player's popularity with the audience. The audience could vote online and they would give the currency to the players, and the players could choose whether they wanted to save this currency or play them right away in a chance to get a new advantage or a new power in the game, and I love this. Sure, this meant that for 3 weeks there were 2 powers or 2 vetoes in play, but it was a nice risk versus reward balance twist. It was also an amazing addition in the middle of the season to try and shake up the power when it was getting kind of predictable. Clearly it didn't really change anything, but I think that speaks more highly of how dominant the Cookout alliance was, and I like the effort. These were great twists and they were very great.
Attention, the Lord of the Latrine has arrived.
Not gonna lie, I completely forgot about the Have-Nots punishment this season. I know it was a thing, but I don't remember anything related to the contestant suffering from it, so at this point, why even have the Have-Nots? Yeah, the Have-Nots twist here was non-existent. Other than Have-Nots, there weren't really many punishments I remember, or any punishments that were notable. Okay, there is one. The Lord of the Latrine was an amazing scene, especially having the adorable Dora X being punished for it.
Get in there.
Thank you.
Lady Tiffany is now using the porcelain throne. Is it a 1 or a 2?
This might be a 1.5.
And okay, I did love XAVIER coming out of Solitary Confinement with hair and a different personality. But they were definitely not as dramatic or memorable as some in the past seasons. The punishments were a little bit downplayed this season, I feel.
Technically, I'm halfway, so am I next?
No, why do you think that? Yes.
The editing.
I'm done with you.
Right, this is where the conflict between Big Brother fans lies. As I'm told, real Big Brother fans watch the live feeds. Casual Big Brother fans just watch the edited show. God damn it, I'm a casual. Sorry, I don't have the patience to log into the live feeds every week. The difference between the two is that the editors have to take thousands of hours worth of material and condense it into a 50-minute show. And sometimes the things that happen in the live cameras are so complex that they have to be so oversimplified in a television program. That's the problem that many people have. That if you just watch the edited show, you're not seeing what's really happening in the game. And that leads to misinformation and to me getting the wrong idea of the product. But it's okay. I do read about what happens in the live feeds and I'm okay just watching the edited show for now. But I do have a couple of problems with it. 1. I know Big Brother prides itself into being a ridiculous show, but it gets too ridiculous for me sometimes. Like... Second, God, I hate the scripted diary room segments. These people are not actors and it shows so much in some scenes. Players like XAVIER, Sarah Beth, and Derek F and Hannah, they can pass it off well because they don't try too hard to fake emotion. But in cases like Brent, Frenchie, Tiffany, and Claire, you can tell that they are really hamming it up. I also hate that every player is seemingly contractually obligated to give confessionals related to their occupation. Like, every single thing has to make a reference to what they do. Frenchie is a farmer, and you will know.
I came about a lightning bug's length from the butt crack of a donkey to taking that. Us just like to play possum sometimes, and then we'll just turn around and get you.
And god damn it, how many airport references can you cram into Brent because he's a flight attendant? It's not even like he's a pilot or something. These beats always annoy the fuck out of me, but that's just a pet peeve. Other than that, I think the editing was fine. I got a general idea of what really was going on in the game, but I wish some characters were a little more fleshed out. ALYSSA, CHADDHA, and ALYSSA, I feel like I didn't really get to truly know. And Frenchie definitely had more complexity going on than just being a dumb farmer, but I really don't know if I should call this editing problems when the show is just made that way. You can really form a cohesive plot in Big Brother because it is a live game and you never know what's going to happen or who's going to go far, so some stories just get abandoned out of nowhere and some are introduced way later than the live feeds, like the Big Blue Couch. So many things are omitted entirely from the show, but I guess that happens when you have a show that writes itself as it goes along. So I won't fault Big Brother too much for that. Something that I noticed though is that they sometimes throw in these cheesy bits of editing and funny cuts that frankly they are pretty comedic. Like if it were a comedy sitcom. And I like it because it's something that not many reality shows do.
What in the world is that? Please, look at the plate. Show it again.
Look at the damn plate.
Like I said, I enjoy this. I think it gives Big Brother a unique feel. But now, it's time to get to the main event. The season.
Accomplish a goal at this point. Big Brother 23 will crown its first African American winner. And that's because of every single person in the circle right here. And this is a win for all of us, no matter who's sitting in those final 2 chairs, all of us should be, consider ourselves winners.
This season will forever be remembered. This is one of those seasons where, as soon as it ended, people instantly knew it was never going to be forgotten. It is a landmark season of Big Brother, but it's not because it is insanely entertaining or anything, but this is a season where history was made. Simple as that. We were seeing history being made live. As Claire says in her eviction,
this game has been played for a long time, and a lot of times people of color aren't looked out for in the game, and they go out early. And
yes, I would describe this season as a direct response to the previous seasons of Big Brother, and for that it's something fascinating to analyze. Big Brother used to be a game that showcased the worst and the best of society, and each season the events of the house felt like you were taking a little glimpse at the times that were. As time went on, like Survivor, this social experiment turned into a strategy game that had its own meta. Players now talk about backdooring and pawning and comp throwing and jury managing like they were terms that always existed. So the social microcosm aspect of the show had lessened considerably. Except in a key area. Black players were still not having a great time in the show. For starters, there weren't many of them, and the 2 or 3 people that were there, they didn't make it far at all, much less were they included in the dominant alliances. If you don't believe me, let's take a look at the big dominant alliances of previous seasons. The Committee, totally white. Grateful, majorly white. Paul's Minions, majorly white. The Bomb Squad, the Detonators, almost all white. I understand why it gets frustrating, and people say that the color of your skin shouldn't matter and that good players will always prevail, but I don't fully believe that the color of one's skin never makes an impact on how people initially see you, especially when these players of color are often typecasted to be people that they aren't. For example, they wanted Kemi to be the loud black woman that argues with everyone, but she refused to play into production's hand. And this obligation to be a personality that they aren't in order to get into the game is something that I believe has affected many of these contestants before. If they behave like the producers want them to, they are ousted by the other players. If they don't, they are completely ignored or they don't even get into the show. But with the recent call in social media for the better treatment of minorities and with huge pressure from the world to do what's right, CBS passed a rule that all of their reality show cast will feature at least 50% POCs, and the ones participating in this season of Big Brother didn't waste their shot. It's like every decision this season was made as a direct reply to all the other times that players in other seasons shunned and outcasted the black players. It's like 7 years of pent-up frustration at the unjust treatment of minorities in Big Brother are finally released into one historic season. In the name of the Vaughn, Kevin, Bailey, Ovi, David, Kemi, Dominic, Jocasta, and a dozen minority players that never had a chance, the Cookout set a mission for themselves, and they cleared it clean. Some don't want to admit it, but the Cookout is one of, if not the most dominant alliance that's ever been on Big Brother. The pretty boys in the brigade are always contenders, but they cannot say that all their members made it to the end intact, though they were 4-player alliances while the Cookout had 6 players, so the Cookout had a little bit more space. It's still hugely impressive anyways. Do you know how much it takes to control your alliance for 65 days? All of the paranoia they had to endure, all the fights between their members, the sacrifices they had to make, the persuasion and the means that they had to apply on all the other players to make sure that no one got a whiff of them working together. No one saw them coming together, no one knew about them until very late in the game, and even then they were just guessing who the members were. The Cookout made every person do the dirty work for them and then showed them the door next week. It was an extremely clean job and my non-existent hats off to them for clearing it. Frankly, I just think it's amazing how much this alliance achieved out of spite from the past years, even with Big Brother being an individual game, and even if some evictions were directly bad moves for some players in their alliance, they still went with it, because the mission had to be done, and boom, just like that, the best alliance in Big Brother history was created. I think it's commendable, but I definitely see how it gets frustrating. I'll talk about this later on, but I'll say that even if the Cookout is a unique event in Big Brother history, it's still a big majority alliance that runs the whole season and it still makes for a really uneventful watch. There are almost no surprises, no house flips, none of that drama that are usually the highest moments of a season. Well, that's not exactly true. It just comes at the very end of the season where the Cookout have to turn in each other, but it's a long way to get there. So why not go through some of the key points of the season together? Let's go.
So we got it.
You guys can sit around and meet each other all you want, but for me, it's game time.
For many, the first week alone was already better than the entirety of the last 6 seasons. I mean, for those last seasons, the first HOH was a decent player that used their status to get into very boring alliances and deals. But the first HOH here we get is Frenchie!
There you go. People are gonna definitely make assumptions about me. People are gonna be like, this guy's a dumb farmer, I got him. What they don't realize is I'm super smart.
Frenchie, a horrible player that used his power to create a mess of an alliance, the slaughterhouse. Started adding everyone on the house into it, and finally he exposes it and destroys it later because Frenchie is a very paranoid and insecure man. God, Frenchie made that first week a circus. He was all over the place and putting his food in his mouth anywhere he went to. He gets caught spying on players' conversations, he makes deals out of his main alliance, he tries forming an all-girl alliance, and he doesn't see any problem with that. He makes promises that he can't keep. He makes his targets widely known, and he tries to show he's a good human being by swearing he won't target any woman or minorities, and the first nominations he puts up is a minority and a woman. Wow, Frenchie. Like, goddamn, Frenchie, you complicated everything way more than you had to. Okay, his goal was to target the alpha bros that seem to win Big Brother every year. Sure, and he should have just put 2 of them on the block right away. Except Brent talked sweetly to him, and Christian won the wildcard competition, and he directly promised Travis safety for the week, and his last remaining target, Derek X, who is a minority, won the power of veto. Wow, Frenchie. You say you were coming after them and you make a deal to keep them safe? Everybody knows that they are your targets and now you can't put almost any of them up. Wow. I get that for many he was an entertaining mess, but damn it, Frenchie was too much for me. I was frustrated beyond belief. Weeks 1 and 2 were annoying because Frenchie was all over the screen with his forced farming references and his delusions that he's a great Big Brother player and that he's going to be covered on all sides. I do love that everything comes crashing back on him in the second week, and he's almost universally hated by the house, so thankfully he's gone after a second win where he just looks like he's in pain constantly. Okay, I like what Frenchie stood for, and I welcome the unpredictability, but during Frenchie's reign of terror, I set a record of facepalms per minute. I can't even be happy when he eventually does get one of the cocky alpha bros out because it was Travis, and I love Travis. He seemed way more humble than the types that we usually get, and he had some really sweet and funny confessionals the time he was there.
Hold up. Hey, yeah, let's just,
I mean, after that dancey dance, I know I've gotten KYLAND's vote. I really just need 6 more birthdays before eviction night and I should be good.
Oh, I love you, my sweet boy. God damn it, Frenchie, Travis was certainly better than BRENT or Christian. Frenchie was frustrating and too extra for me, I'm sorry.
It's gonna be hot this summer. Get ready, America, because the cookout is taking over. The table is basically set. Once we bring in KYLAND as our last member, the cookout will be good to go and we can start eating.
Right after Frenchie leaves is where the game gets leveled. The slaughterhouse is no more, and the true Big Brother alliances are formed. Mainly,
the cookout.
I already talked about the cookout in detail. They're forming week 2, and after getting Frenchie out in the second week, they basically drove every vote without being noticed, even with another big alliance forming amongst them.
I like the Royal Flush Alliance.
The Royal Flush was the Kings, the Queens, and an Ace. And it was probably the cookout's only competition, and I put competition in quotes because they also stood no chance. It looked like they could maybe do some damage and cause some conflicts to the cookout's plans, but this alliance had basically the same targets as the cookout in the first weeks. The house easily got rid of Frenchie and Brent, and the cookout manipulated Christian into thinking that Whitney was a threat to his game, which still shocks me because Whitney did nothing the whole time. And then the cookout killed the Royal Flush by convincing Derek X that Christian is the biggest competition threat to the house and make him evict him. And after that there was no stopping the cookout, which is amazing for them, but can you tell that there was almost nothing really exciting about the pre-jury? Every eviction was like 10-1, 9-1, 8-1, and so on. Unanimous targets every week and no one realizing what's really going on, so yes, a good game played, but I wish things got more exciting in the jury phase. You know what? Sure, I got what I wished for. The jury portion of the game was a little bit more exciting because it's when the Cookout had to do some real manipulation work. The problem for me as a viewer is that they do it too damn well. God damn, get something going on in here, a fight, some drama, something! They get rid of the obvious house targets, BRITINI and the freeze jury week, and then the real Cookout magic happens. See, the real genius of the Cookout is the fact that each member has a duo associated with them.
With the Cookout, we're gonna have our hand in different pots, making sure everyone's doing what they need to be doing while we come back together and use that information to help us to advance.
So if one of the people not in the Cookout wins, then whoever is that person's closest duo can make them do their bidding for them. When XIAO wins, Hannah is in his ear telling him what to do. When BETH wins, KYLAND convinces her to evict X. When Claire gets HOH powers, TIFFANY tells her that BETH is coming for them. So week after week of jury is a clean play of each member of the Cookout sacrificing their duo until only the Cookout remains. I've seen people say that this is a genius, innovative strategy invented by the Cookout, and I just don't agree with that. The Brigade did it, and the Pretty Boys all had the duos as well, but props to the Cookout for executing it in probably the cleanest way. It's some real smooth Big Brother manipulation, and it's honestly pretty satisfying to watch these people target the obviously grown players and then getting immediately evicted next week. That's some good karma for being clueless. Well, it was less about them being clueless and more about the Cookout having their alliance so well, which I can't believe no one caught onto it. Okay, that's not exactly true. People like Christian and X and ALYSSA and Claire, they were putting together the fact that every person evicted in the pre-jury was white and that no white male made it to the jury.
The final 7 are all minorities.
So I believe they were kind of suspicious of this alliance, but it brings up an issue. If you were a house guest and you saw this happening, would you really like to be the one to call out the fact that black people are eliminating all the white people? I have to believe that the thought of being cancelled on social media passed through the mind of some players, and that some ignore it as kind of a problematic thought. Like, yeah, how do you go against an alliance that has a mission like this? If you try to break them up, regardless of it being strategically correct, I would assume Twitter would be shit-talking them to no end. On the other hand, thank God it didn't play it in the reverse way, with a big alliance of white people forming and evicting all the POC people one by one, and that'd be called like the Sandwich Club or something like that. If that happened, this season would be like maybe 9 levels of Forsaken, but that's just ridiculous thinking. The diversity campaign was made to achieve more representation in the season's alliances, and that proved successful. Regardless of the Cookout, POC players were included in the Slaughterhouse and the Royal Flush, so everyone had a first shot. They just couldn't come above that mission. And we do get a little tiny bit of drama here, like we start seeing some cracks within the Cookout as some people in the alliance really can't stand each other, but they have to play nice in order to fulfill the mission. F calls Tiffany a big word, and I don't think anybody likes KYLAND, but they all understand the purpose of sticking together. The highest point of this portion comes though when Tiffany wins an HOH that she wasn't supposed to win, but she does it anyways because she wants the bragging rights. But the person she wanted to evict wins the power of veto and she's forced to nominate her closest non-Cookout ally in the game, Claire.
I care about you probably more than anybody in this house.
Yeah.
How I wanted to play this game. I'm so sorry.
It's sad seeing Claire being very happy at the fact that Tiffany won and being very excited believing she was getting a free pass to Final 7, only for Tiffany to break the news to her that she's going to go up on the block. But at the same time, it's finally something, some real emotion, a real heartbreak, a huge betrayal, a truly difficult moral dilemma that Tiffany stupidly gets herself into. She could have had no clear plan on her hands, but she decided to go for it anyways. And I do love it when XAVIER goes to like, see, that's what you get!
That's what you get, Tiffany!
But Tiffany's decision is one of the highlights of the season. And after Claire goes, Julie Chen's call for a quick double eviction and the last non-Cookout member, ALYSSA, is quickly disposed of after hinting of her fate. But finally, we get to the real juicy bits of the season. It starts with a celebration.
1, 2, 3!
The Cookout have all made the final 6 and they have, without any doubt, written their names in the history books. Some of them may have sacrificed their closest allies in the way, but it was all worth it, because we're finally, after 23 seasons, going to crown Big Brother's first black winner.
The Cookout made it! We have made history! Okay.
That was a mission. That was a mission they had since week 2, and they achieved it with accolades. And you know what? The one great thing about these big alliances getting to the end is that the finales often get so personal between them, and the betrayals are much harder. Big alliances like this are basically cults, and they've all been drinking the Kool-Aid, and when the plan doesn't pay off for any of them, it has the potential to give us an all-time amazing moment. Josh winning over Paul, Casey upsetting Tyler, Cody evicting Nicole. This is where seasons usually get their picks, and this season gets one as well, but I'll get to later. First, I'd like to talk about...
Now, it is really an individual game, and it's every man for himself. Or herself.
Wow!
I know it feels frustrating to some, because it felt frustrating to me. Tiffany and CHADDHA making moves against their own interest, sacrificing their own biggest allies because the mission is just too important. In a way, that's bad Big Brother gameplay. As we see, without those valuable allies that Tiffany and CHADDHA got rid of, they become the first 2 people evicted from the Cookout. Tiffany even directly defied the Cookout's plans by winning the HOH she didn't need to, so later nobody trusted her. And you think to yourself, well, that's dumb, why didn't she keep her allies then? But I wasn't there. You weren't there. You and I could never understand how important the mission was to them. It transcended sound strategy. Whether they lost or not, they all wanted to make history. People are always going to remember Tiffany in the Cookout, and the creation of the alliance will always be linked to her. It's like when people criticize Sarah in Survivor Winners at War for taking Tony as far as she did. It wasn't dumb, it was just their mission. They wanted to make Final 2 together and ballot it out in the jury votes. Tony wasn't particularly manipulating Sarah, they were both close friends that wanted to break the one win each tie in the most epic way possible. It wasn't a dumb move. Sorry, my Survivor mind is taking over, but I feel like this is what the Cookout stood for. Let's all make it to the end together and ballot it out within ourselves in an epic showdown. I do think people put Tiffany a little too high up on a pedestal, however. I get it if she made like Final 4 or 3, but she was the first person evicted from the Cookout. She clearly wasn't driving things in the alliance as much as people wish she did. She was so vulnerable when they had to turn on each other. Tiffany even admits that winning the clear eviction HOH was the biggest mistake of her game and that it completely broke KYLAND's trust in her.
Oh, that is definitely the reason why I am sitting here. Yes. A lot of people were upset about that moment. I don't think it is necessarily that I won. I think it is how I won.
But she wanted to say she won 2 HOHs in a row, so worth it. The same thing happens with CHADDHA, who is evicted again in another double eviction with no one else to save her. She wasn't well connected within the Cookout and she got evicted pretty easily by ALYSSA. But that was the business they made. And this business drives us to the season's most memorable moment. After the Cookout reaches Final 6, XAVIER and KYLAND strike a deal to target Tiffany and Hannah, as they think they would do the same to them. And they even go so far as to make a Final 2 deal to allow the competitive spirit between both of them, called the Gentleman. Basically letting the jury decide who was the best out of the 2 of them. With this alliance and now friendship, XAVIER tells KYLAND the story of his brother's death and how XAVIER wants to be an inspiration to his nephew, and KYLAND plans to honor this deal because so far, well, he's been an upstanding guy.
I respect y'all's decision for your individual game, and I love all of you, and I don't feel any negative way towards you. I don't know if that's ever been confusing. But
I haven't talked about KYLAND, no, I haven't talked about KYLAND. I'd probably say that he was the Cookout member that I liked the least. I'm honestly happy that I can say that I didn't think he was an awful person or anything, but he was just kind of boring. Mostly nice, and I like his calm, raspy voice, but that Final 4 eviction, oh, that Final 4 eviction shocked me. So far, Kaya has been a decently likable and very polite person, just you have to hear how he talks.
Tiffany, but she picked the wrong answer. So, now it looks like this jackass is the next HOH. Oh boy.
He talks very quietly, slowly, and smoothly. That's why he has been included in literally every big alliance, and that's why it has been so easy for him to manipulate people. He faced virtually no difficulty through the game has been as smooth as he's talking, but he is seen as a huge jury threat to take to the end, and eventually he just becomes too dangerous to stay around. XAVIER betrays KYLAND, and KYLAND's nice guy facade just completely drops.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the whole, Kobe thing, raising him to be a man and face challengers and stuff.
Are you talking about my nephew right now?
I'm, named after Kobe. Kobe doesn't step down from a challenge; he accepts it.
I highly suggest you stop talking about my nephew.
If your nephew has nobody to look up to,
keep talking about my nephew.
If your nephew has nobody to look up to,
wow, he called XAVIER disappointment for his nephew, a coward. Wow, he brings a very personal subject to XAVIER. This is one of the most bitter exits that I can remember, and that's great television. It's awful for KYLAND, who in the game has been mostly nice but kind of a dick sometimes when it comes to letting other people make decisions, but on Twitter, everyone's been roasting him all game long. Somehow they found KYLAND's Twitter and it is full of Karen level complaining, but KYLAND's Karen side almost never comes to in Big Brother, except for this moment, and it's so personal and it shows so much about who KYLAND is, like it's been hidden within him all this time. The fact that KYLAND has that dumb smug smile through his ugly exit just makes everyone hate him more. He's behaving like a bitter little turd and he knows it. Even Julie has to intervene. She hurries him out of the door before things get nastier.
KYLAND.
Julie's waiting on him. Julie's waiting on him.
I need you to leave right now, KYLAND.
No, I just
walk.
KYLAND.
Yes,
KYLAND, I need you to leave right now.
And honestly, the fact that XAVIER keeps his composure that well and never reacts to any of KYLAND's thesis just shows how great of a person XAVIER is. But deep down we all know this could have gotten so physically ugly. It's shocking, it's personal, I can't take my eyes away from it. This personal drama is what people love Big Brother, and hell, even reality television for. It's what everyone's been waiting for all season. Well, we got it, and thankfully it doesn't get BB19 levels of ugly, so it's just the exact right amount of drama. So that was a great historic moment, but now it's time to tie this historic season with a nice little bow.
At this stage of the game, losing is not an option. I've come too far, I've done too much. I refuse to be denied what I've worked so hard for. I made a promise to my brother and I'm not gonna let anything get in the way of that. Good luck, you guys.
Derek Fraser, ALYSSA, and XAVIER. 2 jokers and a king. I love how perfect those names fit, not only in rhyme but in description. Derek and ALYSSA so far have been pretty nice overall, but that's it. They're fittingly the jokers because they have mostly just delivered the comedy relief of the season, and they're the people that are being taken far by XAVIER because they are the least threatening Cookout members. That is not to say they have played bad games or that they were useless, but it's clear they both were the Cookout's least active strategists or physical beasts. Derek Fraser especially has been the joke of the season, as he's this season's Big Brother delusional player. Yeah, every BB season has that one person who thinks they're playing a much better game than he really is. And sure, he was friendly to everybody, but mostly he was just the butt of the joke. The roasts on the internet were never ending on him. ALYSSA was nice too, and she was much more of a dark horse to win, like someone who could actually upset XAVIER at the very end by winning the final HOH competition. If ALYSSA had won and gotten rid of XAVIER, that would definitely have been one of the funniest Big Brother endings in quite some time. I wish we had gotten the 2 jokers get to the end together. That would have been just poetry. But nah, that wasn't ever gonna happen. Even if ALYSSA won the final HOH, she admitted that she would have taken XAVIER anyways because Derek Kev stupidly has a huge argument with ALYSSA right at the very end. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest social game in history. History that never was. But I'm honestly happy too because it means that our winner was...
From an individual standpoint, I won 3 HOHs. That ties the most for this season. I won 3 veto competitions. That's the most out of anybody this season. And a total of 7 competitions total, which is the most this season. And I was also the ultimate pawn. I was nominated 5 times, yes, once, by some stupid roulette wheel. I will never say anything bad about Big D. He's my closest friend in this house. He's my closest brother. We're both bald, we're both bearded, and we both are sitting here in these 2 chairs asking you guys to give us $750,000. I love you all. I enjoyed playing this game, and this has been an amazing summer, no matter what you guys decide. Thank you.
I love you both.
Thank you, Xavier.
Wow.
Thank you, thank you, gentlemen.
Xavier is yet another strong alpha man that is never traded in the game and ultimately gets to the end. The difference here is that I actually love Xavier and I was glad he was winning the whole thing. I miss when Big Brother winners had a sense of humor to them. You know, the last ones have just been killjoys the entire time because it's good for their game. I know Xavier was also very game focused, but he was a lot more charming and willing to show a humorous side to him. His confessionals were a lot of fun and I absolutely loved it anytime he would let out his alter ego, Lucius.
I'm doing groovy.
I see that. Please cast your vote to evict.
I vote to evict the swagadelic Derek X.
Thank you.
All right, peace, love, and cocoa butter.
Did Cody ever have an alter ego? Didn't think so. So Xavier was much more likable, fun, and a great player. It's funny cause in my season's predictions I put ALYSSA as a 3rd place finisher and Xavier as my winner pick, and I'm pretty shocked that both of those predictions came true. I always saw Xavier as one of the biggest threats to look out for and he certainly proved me right. He was a great player, possibly the best positioned person in the whole house, and he was never threatened in the game. I mean, players like Claire eventually caught on to his game, but by that point they were halfway out the door. And that final 4 move against KYLAND, that's some king shit right there. Ruthless. Xavier was a lot of fun and a very deserving Big Brother winner. Also, a great representative of the first black Big Brother winner, even if anyone on the Cookout could have done it justice. Xavier ultimately was my favorite member from the Cookout, and I'm very happy with this ending.
Here really smells like donkey poop.
No wonder people don't want to talk to me.
I do feel that. Sorry. I just farted. Did you hear that? My bad.
The characters. I mentioned some people in my season review, but I want to talk quickly about the ones that weren't as relevant to the story. But first, let me say overall, the characters in this season were pretty fun. The casting rule change definitely affected the feel of the season cause almost all of these people are goddamn cinema rolls. A far cry from the nastiness of 21 and 22's cast. Less recruits this season meant that players here took the game less seriously and personally than previous seasons, and they didn't get as nasty. Mostly. And honestly, I would have been happy with almost any one of them making it to the end and winning. Claire, TIFFANY, CHADDHA, Derek X, BRITINI, ALYSSA, Sarah BETH. If they won, I think I would have felt happy. Though not as much as with Xavier's victory, so this season gets a huge green light for me in the character department. This season felt much lighter than the previous ones and I welcome it for that. Yeah, sure, there's less drama, but I am actually interested in these people for once. Let's get to them quickly. Travis. God, Travis got such a token surfer, dude. He always used phrases like bro or hang 10 or these ridiculous 90s phrases. It's unbelievable that someone like that still exists. And I am usually rooting against the surfer bro dudes because they had it too easy for too long. But goddamn if I didn't fall in love with Travis. I didn't want to, but he was cute and humble and he could joke about himself. And I don't think he was as meat-headed as Frenchie thought. It's tragic that he was the first eviction, but I can live with it, I guess. Mostly. From what little I saw him though, I really like him. I wish I was his friend and he'd invite me to jump off a cliff together. Frenchie. As I said, I like that Frenchie gave us something different in week 1 for once, but he got to a point where I just couldn't stand his voice anymore. His farmer shtick was too forced in the DRs, his gameplay frustrated me to no end, and he tried way too hard to appeal to the masses in my opinion. Thankfully he exceeded right when he needed to. I find it funny though that his goal was to not have any of the alpha dudes win Big Brother, and at the end, one of the alpha dudes he mentioned won Big Brother. That's prophetic. BRENT. My biggest disappointment this season. I was hoping BRENT would be a fun character like Brett in BB20, but he took himself way too seriously and nobody liked him and he was bullied by the idiot and everyone was kinda creeped out by him. And, sorry BRENT, I had a better vision for you. WHITNEY. Harmless, just harmless. She was the most non-entity person of the season. Sorry, Whit. Christian. Christian is the guy I expected him to be. cocky, competition-oriented, gets into a showman and becomes too much of a threat, so no surprises here. I think he's nice and he has certainly been humble post-game, but I think it was too much of an open book for me. I knew what he was going to be, and he was exactly that. Kinda dull, TBH. BRITINI. Okay, here's my unpopular opinion. BRITINI was my favorite character this season, and I'm so sad that she never got fruit in the game. I know people got annoyed by it, but I love her energy. Just the way she would speak about herself in confessionals, the competitive spirit in her. She was the only player willing to make a fool of herself so openly, like in that competition. Or when she came up with a rap verse whenever she was nominated.
House guests, let's get down to business. Don't know where you're voting. Ha, let me spit this. That's all I made up. Okay, so the point.
Yeah, I call it cringe, I call it charming. I love people who love to have fun with who they are, and BRITINI delivered the funniest bit from the season, so I love her. Yeah, maybe she cried a little bit too much, like whenever she was nominated she cried, but she made fun of herself just as much, and her hyperactivity was very much welcome in a low energy season as this one. BRITINI, I love you! Cheers! Derek XIAO. I thought he was going to be boring, but Derek X is a certified cinnamon roll boy and I will not let anyone hurt him. Maybe he was a bit naive in the game, but he was incredibly likable and personable and humble. He was a good presence, and it just made me wish he and Travis could have had their showmans. Damn it, Frenchie. Sarah BETH. I love Sarah BETH. This is a fresh take on the cutesy quirky type of player. For being someone that looks like a doll, she was probably the most self-deprecating person on the cast, and I love that. There's something really funny in seeing someone like Sarah BETH be aware that America probably hates her and listening to her commentary about it.
Pretty sure America's happy I'm in danger, so no glimmer of hope. But right now, there's a chance. BB bankrupt. Honestly, America can wipe their butt with the BB bucks. You don't give them to me anyways.
She was also very strategically minded and could have been a more threatening player had she made any connection outside of KYLAND, which was frustrating to see at times. I really wish she had developed farther than just being KYLAND's +1, but her pessimistic demeanor throughout the game definitely had me laughing. Sarah BETH was cool. Claire, man, Claire got played hard. I still can't get over that. I was thinking Claire would be the one person to watch out for, but she never really seemed to put together the fact that there was a big alliance in the house that she wasn't a part of until it was too late. And that Tiffany betrayal must have been painful, but Claire is a gamer, and she knew what she was getting into and she was gracious about the loss. I wish they showed more of her personality though, because she felt kind of fake and flat the whole time to me, like kind of game body and never did anything really exciting, so sorry. ALYSSA. Sitting as Christian, funny enough. Have showmans, do decent, get evicted. Which is a shame because she had an edgy, no bullshit personality, and if they showed it more she would have had an identity for herself, but instead she was XAVIER's +1. Tiffany, the shining star of the season for many. For once, it's cool to see the mastermind of an alliance be this strategic, smart woman who doesn't back down easily instead of a big alpha dude. Takes me back to the Danielle days. And she was a huge surprise to me. She was one of the bigger super fans of the game and she lived her dream, even being voted America's favorite player. Maybe a little too hype, but she's clearly the breakout player from the season and the Cookout talks will always be mainly about her. I'm also happy that she wasn't this super smug, condescending player and that she remained humble, if a little bit sassy. Yeah, okay, it's a shame that the mission had to come before her personal game, because I am really interested in how she would do if she was truly self-interested, but I'm guessing we will see her again. Tiffany rules. CHADDHA. CHADDHA was more of the silent strategist of the alliance. She kept quiet, but at the same time she subtly positioned herself better in the game, except that she was also all about the mission before her personal interest, and that made her fall as well. But I have to admit that unlike Tiffany, I didn't get much from CHADDHA at all, other than her being kinda really smug at times. I was very interested in her connection with Eric X and her disconnection from BRENT, so I feel like I was left hanging a little bit for her. KYLAND. Like I said, KYLAND was probably the most boring person of the Cookout and the one I was least interested in. He was the more game body type person of the alliance and he talked so slowly and politely that he was basically programmed for me to say, okay. And he turned out to be the meanest person of the season too. That bitter exit moment will always have his reputation dropped. But if KYLAND is your meanest guy in a season, then the season was not that bad. ALYSSA. Asa is one of those characters that the more the season went on, the more I realized how much I actually liked her despite her small role in the Cookout. She wasn't very active by any means, but I always liked her nice and funny commentary every now and then. She was like the most sane person out there and very friendly. Her only flaw is that she can't moonwalk. Come on. Derek F. Derek F is a joke, but thankfully he's a pretty funny one, at times. Yes, he got very delusional at the end, thinking he was the most important player in the Cookout. Sure. But throughout the season, he's been giving the funniest commentary and reactions, not to mention the funniest eviction votes.
Cast your vote to evict.
I sadly to vote BRENT.
Thank you.
Okay, that's actually a real problem he has, but it was definitely a meme in the internet. I honestly can't hate him because he was a loyal best friend to Frenchie and Brittany, and I think that was heartwarming, though he could get pretty mean at points, especially when it came to Tiffany. The one thing I don't like about these comedy relief characters is that they always make it to the final two because they are very easy to beat in the final vote, and Derek F was no exception. So that final vote was a blowout, predictably. XAVIER. Like I said, I'm happy XAVIER won because he was actually fun to watch. You could see his personality shine through his DRs. He was serious and focused at times, but he wasn't above having a little bit of fun making fun of other players or playing with a confessional setup. Finally, some real personality happened here. Even if his victory was predictable, even if he was another strong dude winning the game, even if he delivered another blowout vote, XAVIER is my favorite of the past winners and possibly one of my favorite winners of all time. I just need to watch some seasons that I haven't watched yet, but he's certainly in my top right now. I love XAVIER. Big Brother 23 is worth watching for the history that was made in it, as well as the people that were part of it. Yes, it is yet another season that is dominated by one big alliance like most of the previous ones, but the alliance here is much more easier to digest than the horrible people that were ungrateful and the comedy. The Cookout is much more likable and a relatable group, and it is heartwarming how dedicated to the mission everyone was. And it's not like the Cookout won every competition in power, they had to get in people's ears and convince them of moves that were not good for their games, and they all showed they were capable players. They wanted to make history in Big Brother, and they have certainly made sure that their names will never be forgotten. I'd say the worst thing about this season was its predictability, especially in the pre-jury portion of the game where nothing seems to really happen or change. But I think the jury phase was much more fun because we saw them actually pulling off the duo's plan flawlessly. They just had it maybe a little too easily, and not many people were playing for their own interest, but this leads us to the best thing about the season, the history being made. The Cookout is firmly staying in everyone's head rent-free. Yes, they may be a little bit overhyped sometimes, but that's just the recency of it, and the fact that people can't believe something like this actually happened. Some say the Cookout is not unique or groundbreaking, because it's the same dominant alliance that he's played out in previous seasons. But I'd say that the fact that, for the first time ever, people of color had the upper hand, makes them a pretty special alliance. There's no other way to say it. Big Brother 23 was the summer of the Cookout, and people all around the web rejoiced. Mostly. BB23 is not a very entertaining season game-wise or drama-wise, and it's not very enthralling. There aren't many surprises, and it is very predictable. But the cast is so likable and wholesome that it leaves a nicer taste in my mouth than the previous ones. That's why the steamroll didn't bore me as much. I was much more interested in seeing these people succeed than say Cody, Jackson or Nicole. I love most of them, and this season is certainly a step up from the two previous years. Big Brother 23 was overall a good time, and it is a season that I recommend watching. Thank you for joining me in my review. I hope you liked it, and I hope you do check out this season because it is historic. So yeah, follow me on social media and comment and like and subscribe and whatever you want to do. I would just keep uploading these season reviews of reality shows because I like them. And remember, I'm the TV9 again, and you gotta do the cooking by the book. I'll see ya.